In the months ahead, a storm is quietly sweeping across the aisles of America's biggest grocery stores. Not a sale, not a seasonal shift. This is the sound of something far more permanent, a silent unraveling. The grocery chains that once fed the nation are now facing their own reckoning. In 2025, the Great Collapse is no longer theoretical. It is happening right now. Shelves are being emptied not by shoppers, but by fate. Stores are shuttering, staff are being laid off, and neighborhoods that once relied on these retail giants are watching helplessly as they vanish one by one. This is not just about produce and price tags, it is about a vanishing way of life. A slow-motion demolition of the cornerstones of American food culture. And today, we are going to uncover 15 of the biggest grocery chains in the United States that are crumbling in 2025. And why it is not just about money. It is about the death of an entire model that no longer fits the modern world. Number 1, Kroger. At one time, Kroger was more than a grocery store. It was the dependable face of food retail in over 40 states. But now, cracks are forming beneath the surface. In 2024, Kroger announced the closure of over 100 underperforming locations. And in 2025, analysts are predicting even more will disappear. Why is Kroger falling? One word: overreach. In its desperate attempt to grow, Kroger started swallowing up smaller chains. But instead of synergy, it created chaos. Merging cultures, logistics nightmares, and confused branding drove customers away. The company's attempt to merge with Albertsons only added fuel to the fire. Antitrust lawsuits, mounting debt, and operational chaos have turned the grocery titan into a ticking time bomb. The modern shopper wants clarity, speed, and trust, and Kroger is delivering none of those. It clings to old systems and layouts that feel more like mazes than markets. And while prices rise, customer satisfaction drops. If the current trajectory continues, 2025 might be the year Kroger begins fading from the map entirely. And what happens when your most reliable grocery store becomes the next empty building in your local plaza? That is not just inconvenient. That is terrifying. Number 2, Safeway. There was a time when Safeway meant quality, familiarity, and reliability. But now, that name is just a ghost on a flickering sign above a half-stocked store. Owned by Albertsons, Safeway has become a victim of corporate neglect and strategic indecision. Stores are closing in record numbers. In cities like San Francisco and Phoenix, longtime shoppers are watching their favorite stores quietly disappear. Why? Because Safeway failed to evolve. In an era where stores need to feel fresh, efficient, and welcoming, Safeway still looks and feels like it is stuck in 1999. Dim lighting, cluttered aisles, poor stock management, high prices, and an online shopping system that is light years behind competitors like Amazon Fresh or Walmart. The pandemic should have been Safeway's wake-up call. Instead, it fell further behind. And now, Albertsons is choosing to let go of it piece by piece, selling off properties, consolidating operations, and preparing to walk away from the once proud brand. By the end of 2025, many Americans may no longer see a Safeway sign at all, just an empty shell where fresh food once lived. And maybe that is the saddest part. Not the loss of the store, but the silence that follows. Number 3, Albertsons. If you are wondering how a company that owns so many grocery brands is struggling, you are not alone. But that is exactly what is happening. Albertsons, the parent company of chains like Safeway, Vons, and Jewel Osco, is unraveling, not because it does not make money, but because it is drowning in complexity. The merger with Kroger was supposed to be the solution. Instead, it became the spotlight on everything wrong with corporate grocery America. From regulatory scrutiny to public backlash, Albertsons is now stuck in a holding pattern. And its own house is falling apart while it waits. Poor labor conditions, technological stagnation, loyalty programs that confuse more than reward, and a growing customer base that is defecting to smarter, faster, leaner alternatives. The more Albertsons tries to act like a monopoly, the more consumers rebel. And 2025 is shaping up to be the year the rebellion breaks the chain. Already this year, Albertsons has announced over 60 store closures and has paused expansion plans nationwide. That is not a strategy. That is surrender. And in a market that moves faster than ever, surrender is the first step to extinction. Number 4. Whole Foods. Remember when Whole Foods was the future? The store that made eating healthy feel like a luxury experience? That was before Amazon took control. Since then, the brand has lost its soul. The sleek, earthy vibe has been replaced by a sterile, data-driven shopping experience that feels more like a warehouse than a wellness destination. Customers notice. Foot traffic is down, prices are up, and longtime loyalists are turning to local organic markets instead. Amazon's decision to centralize supply chains has led to frequent shortages, bland selections, and fewer regional specialties. The very things that made Whole Foods unique are now missing. What remains is a shell. A polished, cold, uninspiring shell that is hemorrhaging relevance. Whole Foods stores are quietly closing in smaller markets. And in major metros, new competitors like Thrive Market and Sprouts are carving away the core customer base. The worst part? Amazon does not seem to care. To them, Whole Foods is just another node in the Prime ecosystem, but to millions of shoppers, it was once a sanctuary. In 2025, it is fast becoming a monument to what happens when culture is replaced by code. And no amount of smart shelves can fix that. Number 5. Giant Eagle. A name known throughout the Midwest and parts of the Northeast, Giant Eagle was once a powerhouse of regional pride. But now the Eagle is no longer soaring, it is flailing. The company is suffering from identity crisis. Not quite a value chain, not quite premium, and not quite efficient. That lack of focus is driving away customers who know exactly what they want. And Giant Eagle is failing to deliver. Loyalty programs are outdated, digital platforms are clunky, and prices higher than national competitors. Add in poor in-store experiences and a lack of innovation, and the picture becomes clear. This is not a store preparing for the future. This is a chain stuck in neutral. In 2025, Giant Eagle has already closed nearly 30 locations, and insiders suggest dozens more are on the chopping block. Rising labor costs, shrinking margins, and an aging leadership team make a turnaround unlikely. In markets like Pennsylvania and Ohio, this could spell disaster for consumers already living in food deserts. Because when a Giant Eagle disappears, it is not just another lost store, it is the loss of a local hub. And for many communities, that loss is too great to ignore. Number 6. Food Lion. For decades, Food Lion was a reliable name in southern and mid-Atlantic states. Affordable, simple, familiar. But in a world dominated by convenience, digital innovation, and fresh branding, Food Lion feels like yesterday's news. The chain's struggle to modernize has been brutal. Outdated interiors, weak digital infrastructure, a loyalty program that barely functions, and branding that has not changed meaningfully since the 1990s. It is no surprise, then, that shoppers are walking away. In 2024 alone, Food Lion closed over 40 stores. And in 2025, that number is expected to rise. What is more alarming is that many closures are happening in rural areas where options are limited. That is more than an inconvenience. That is a crisis. The company's parent group, Ahold Delhaize, is pouring resources into more modern brands like Fresh Direct and Hannaford, leaving Food Lion behind. And that lack of investment is turning a slow decline into a full-blown collapse. The company still uses marketing slogans that feel stale and disconnected from today's consumers. It is like watching a VHS tape in a streaming world. The question is not if Food Lion will survive. The question is how long it will take to become another entry on the list of forgotten grocery names. Number 7. Winn Dixie. Winn Dixie is more than a grocery chain. For many in the southern United States, it is part of their childhood, a place filled with memories of shopping with parents, grabbing weekend snacks, and hunting for weekly deals. But nostalgia is not enough to save it. Winn Dixie is facing a brutal mix of old infrastructure, new competitors, and financial instability. Despite a rebranding effort in 2023, the results have been disappointing. Sales remain flat. Customer satisfaction continues to slide, and shoppers are turning toward fresher, faster competitors like Publix or Aldi. Many Winn Dixie locations still suffer from the same problems they had a decade ago. Poor lighting, limited produce selection, long lines, and a general sense of neglect. The chain has not just failed to modernize, it has failed to inspire. Even worse, the recent acquisition by a regional retail group has sparked fears of mass closures and asset stripping. And for millions of Southern shoppers, that could mean saying goodbye to a brand they once thought would be around forever. Number 8, Save-A-Lot. For a long time, Save-A-Lot filled a vital niche. Discount groceries, no frills, and bare-bones pricing that appealed to families just trying to get by. But in 2025, even the budget option is breaking down. Why? Because Save-A-Lot is stuck in a dangerous middle ground. Not cheap enough to beat deep discounters like Aldi. Not fresh or modern enough to compete with regional favorites like Trader Joe's. And not innovative enough to stay ahead of the curve. The brand's once appealing simplicity has become its Achilles heel. Outdated store layouts, low product variety, and minimal investment in digital technology have turned shopping at Save-A-Lot into a chore rather than a choice. According to retail analysts, foot traffic at Save-A-Lot has dropped by over 20% since 2022. And now the chain is in retreat mode. In the first half of 2025 alone, over 70 locations have been quietly closed across states like Ohio, Georgia, and Missouri. This is not just belt tightening. This is a brand quietly being dismantled. Its parent company is already offloading properties, reducing supply contracts, and exploring asset liquidation. Once a sanctuary for struggling families, Save-A-Lot is becoming harder and harder to find. And for many Americans, that loss hits far deeper than dollars. It is the fading out of one of the last grocery options that promised affordability without judgment. Number 9, Vons. For residents of California and Nevada, Vons has long been part of the local grocery ecosystem. Reliable, familiar, convenient. But lately, those three words no longer apply. Vons is falling behind on every front: aesthetics, pricing, online shopping, and customer service. The stores feel stuck in time, and not in a nostalgic way. In a neglected, dimly lit, frustrating kind of way. Owned by Albertsons, Vons suffers from the same problems dragging down Safeway and Jewel Osco, namely corporate neglect. Instead of investing in modernization or regional branding, Albertsons has kept Vons in a holding pattern. The result? Slow stock rotation, lackluster produce, and high prices that leave customers questioning why they ever walked in the door. Meanwhile, competitors like Ralph's, Sprouts, and even Target are stepping in with better design, fresher offerings, and a more rewarding shopping experience. In early 2025, Albertsons confirmed that dozens of Vons locations would be shuttered across Southern California, and more are expected to follow. These are not just small-town locations. These are stores in major suburban communities. And as they vanish, shoppers are left scrambling. The brand that once anchored entire neighborhoods is slipping quietly into irrelevance, and no one in the corporate office seems willing to stop it. Number 10, Fresh Market. When Fresh Market launched, it was supposed to be a revolution. A European-style grocery boutique. Dim lighting, classical music, and the finest ingredients. For a while it worked. But in 2025, that charm has worn thin. Fresh Market is struggling with a very specific problem. It is too expensive for everyday shopping, and not exciting enough for destination shopping. Customers who used to see it as a luxury experience now just see high prices and tight aisles. In a food economy dominated by convenience, efficiency, and innovation, Fresh Market feels like a luxury mall from the 1980s. Interesting at first glance, but dated upon closer inspection. And the numbers tell the story. Customer traffic is down, revenue growth has stalled, and competition from more modern grocery experiences like Whole Foods, Airy One, and local organic co-ops is eroding the chain's base. In 2024, Fresh Market closed 15 locations. In 2025, it has already closed 12 more. And analysts expect that trend to accelerate. What used to feel like a special place to shop now feels like a confusing middle ground. Not exclusive enough for high-end shoppers, not practical enough for the average family. In the end, Fresh Market may be remembered not for what it did wrong, but for what it failed to become. Number 11. Sprouts Farmers Market. At first glance, it might seem odd to include Sprouts in this list. After all, it is a well-known name in the world of health-conscious grocery shopping. But beneath the sleek branding and clean produce aisles, Sprouts is quietly slipping into trouble. The problem? Overexpansion and underdelivery. Sprouts grew fast, maybe too fast. And now the cracks are showing. Stores are opening in markets where demand is too thin. Product pricing is inconsistent. And shoppers are noticing. The chain has faced criticism for being Whole Foods light, trying to mimic the organic boutique vibe without delivering the same quality or community feel. Customers complain about overpriced items, limited selections, and confusing store layouts. In many areas, Sprouts has become the grocery store you visit once out of curiosity and never return to again. In 2025, Sprouts has already announced closures in 5 states, a painful correction after a decade of trying to scale too quickly. The problem is not just in the stores, it is in the strategy. Sprouts has failed to find its true identity. And in a time when consumers expect values, innovation, and consistency, that failure is costing them everything. What happens when a brand promises fresh and delivers average? It disappears. Number 12. Smart and Final. A strange name and an even stranger fate. Smart and Final was once known as a warehouse-style grocery chain that combined the best of Costco and traditional supermarkets. But in 2025, its model has become a cautionary tale. Shoppers no longer want to buy 50-pound bags of rice just to save a few dollars. They want flexibility, freshness, and ease. And Smart and Final offers none of that. The stores feel industrial, the prices are no longer competitive, and the customer experience? Barely tolerable. While other chains are investing in self-checkout, fresh meal kits, and mobile apps, Smart and Final still feels like a relic from another era. Owned by a private equity group more focused on extracting profits than investing in growth, the chain is withering on the vine. In 2025, Smart and Final is expected to close more than 40 stores in California alone. And expansion plans have been entirely frozen. The writing is on the wall. This is not just a slump. This is collapse in real time. And the longer leadership pretends otherwise, the faster the brand will vanish from the landscape. Number 13, Piggly Wiggly. Say the name out loud and it might bring a smile. Piggly Wiggly is one of the oldest and most beloved grocery brands in America. But that legacy is not enough to save it. Founded in the early 1900s, the brand pioneered the concept of self-service grocery shopping. It was revolutionary. But today it is out of step with the world it helped create. Piggly Wiggly stores still operate under a franchise model, which means quality and pricing vary wildly by location. Some stores feel modern and well-run. Others feel like walking into a time machine, and not in a good way. Poor lighting, sparse shelves, limited product selection, and branding that feels more like a cartoon than a credible grocery destination. In rural communities, Piggly Wiggly remains essential. But even there, it is losing ground to national giants like Walmart and regional powerhouses like Publix. In 2025, at least 25 franchisees have announced plans to close or convert to other grocery systems, and many more are struggling to survive. Once the future of American grocery retail, Piggly Wiggly is now a reminder of how quickly the world can move on. Number 14. Jewel Osco. For many in the Midwest, especially Illinois, Jewel Osco was not just a grocery store, it was the grocery store. But in 2025, the crown is slipping. Owned by Albertsons, Jewel Osco is suffering from the same neglect that is crushing Vons and Safeway. Lack of modernization, weak pricing strategy, and leadership that seems to have no long-term vision. What was once a leader in customer loyalty and in-store experience is now bogged down by long checkout lines, stale branding, and empty shelves. Digital infrastructure is years behind competitors, and customers who used to shop there weekly now avoid it entirely. In Chicago alone, over 10 locations have shuttered since the start of the year, and more closures are expected throughout the Midwest. Albertsons is clearly prioritizing other ventures, and Jewel Osco is being left to drift, a brand without direction, a chain without momentum, and a once loyal customer base that is now looking elsewhere for their daily bread. Number 15. Fairway Market. In New York City, Fairway was once more than a grocery store. It was a cultural icon, a place where you could find everything from artisanal cheese to obscure spices. Fairway felt like a marketplace, not a supermarket. But years of mismanagement, bankruptcy filings, and ownership changes have drained that magic. Today, Fairway is a shadow of its former self. The flagship locations are gone. The shelves feel emptier, and the prices feel higher. What used to be a vibrant, chaotic, wonderful place to shop now feels like a tired chain barely holding it together. Acquired by Amazon's subsidiary Village Supermarket, Fairway has not seen the revitalization many hoped for. Instead, its identity has faded, its loyal base has scattered, and the once legendary New York grocery institution is disappearing from neighborhoods that helped build it. Fairway was not just a store, it was an experience. And now that experience is being quietly erased. One store at a time, one memory at a time. So what happens when the grocery stores we grew up with, the ones we trusted to feed our families, begin to vanish? The answer is not just economic, it is emotional. For millions of Americans, these chains were not just retail spaces. They were part of their weekly rhythm, a Saturday morning tradition, a midweek lifeline, a place where food and familiarity came hand in hand. Now the lights are flickering, the doors are locking, and the aisles are growing quiet. The fall of these chains is not just about sales margins or corporate missteps. It is about a changing America, one where convenience beats loyalty, where mobile apps are more valuable than friendly cashiers, where neighborhood grocers are being replaced by algorithm-driven delivery platforms, and where the soul of food shopping is being replaced by speed. We are living through a grocery extinction event, and like all extinctions, it does not happen all at once. It happens quietly, slowly, and then suddenly it is over. What used to be a familiar storefront becomes an empty shell, a faded logo, a memory. Grocery chains, once the pillars of our towns and cities, are crumbling under pressure. Pressure from inflation, pressure from digital disruption, pressure from changing values, but most of all, pressure from us. The customers, the consumers, the very people who built these brands are the ones now choosing to walk away. Because today's shopper wants more, and they're no longer afraid to demand it. They want price transparency. They want locally sourced produce. They want stores that feel clean, fast, and intuitive. And when they do not get that, they leave. This is why chains like Kroger, Albertsons, and Whole Foods are in decline. They are not keeping up, they are not listening, and they are not adapting. In the past, size was a strength. But in 2025, size is a liability. Being a massive chain means being slow to change. It means bloated systems and outdated thinking. It means watching faster, smarter competitors fly by while you are still in committee meetings. You can see it in every abandoned parking lot, every shuttered entrance, every paper sign taped to a locked automatic door. The message is always the same: closed, out of business. Thank you for your years of support. But behind those words is something deeper, a recognition that the game has changed and the giants are falling. The pandemic accelerated this shift. It forced grocery stores to either modernize or stagnate. Many did not respond fast enough. Others cut corners that customers noticed. And now, in 2025, we are seeing the consequences in full view. So, where do shoppers go now? Increasingly, the answer is split. On one side, there are the digital-first platforms like Amazon Fresh, Thrive Market, and Instacart that deliver groceries straight to your door. No aisles, no carts, no waiting. On the other side, there is a rebirth of local, small-format grocers, farmers markets, neighborhood co-ops. People want to know where their food is coming from, who is growing it, how it is made. They want connection, and many of the big chains failed to provide that. Instead of building trust, they built bureaucracy. And bureaucracy does not fill stomachs. This is why chains that were once staples in every town are now holding liquidation sales and handing out final paychecks. They stopped being part of the community, and in doing so, they lost the community's support. When a grocery store closes, it leaves behind more than just an empty building. It leaves behind a vacuum. Seniors who relied on it for medication and meals. Parents who counted on it to feed their kids affordably. Workers who built their livelihoods within its walls. And what replaces it? Often nothing. Or worse, a discount chain with lower quality and even fewer resources. The ripple effect of these closures spreads far and wide. It impacts public health. It worsens food deserts. It erodes local economies. And most painfully, it chips away at the sense of normalcy that so many of us rely on. Because a grocery store is not just where we shop. It is where we plan, where we budget, where we nourish. It is a place of routine, stability, and care. Losing that, losing 15 major grocery chains in one era, is more than a trend. It is a cultural shift. And the chains that survive? They are the ones willing to reimagine everything. They are rethinking store design, delivery models, supplier relationships, and customer engagement. They are investing in experience over excess. They are cutting waste, not corners. They are staying lean, staying human, and staying local. Brands like Aldi and Trader Joe's are gaining traction because they know who they are. They are not trying to be everything. They are trying to be excellent at something. And that clarity is what keeps shoppers coming back. For the failing chains, the lesson is harsh but necessary. Being big is not enough. Being old is not an asset. Being familiar does not make you relevant. You have to evolve, you have to listen, and you have to lead. Because when the pace of culture changes faster than your business model, you do not just fall behind, you fall apart. What we are witnessing in 2025 is not just the end of 15 grocery chains. It is the end of an era where food shopping was treated like a static ritual. Today, it is dynamic, personalized, integrated with technology, driven by values. Customers want sustainability. They want ethical sourcing. They want more plant-based options, less packaging, more transparency, less processed food. They want to shop in stores that reflect the world they live in now, not the one from 30 years ago. And yet, so many chains still operate like they are stuck in the past. Wood paneling, broken refrigeration units, flyers printed in bulk, weekly circulars that most people never read. It is not charming. It is just outdated. When a brand refuses to adapt, the market decides for them. And that decision is brutal. Store closures, mass layoffs, bankruptcy filings, reputation collapse. In the past 2 years, more than 400 grocery stores tied to these failing chains have closed across the country. And the pace is accelerating. This is not hyperbole, this is reality. The golden age of traditional chain grocery stores is ending, and the ones that cannot transition into something smarter, lighter, and more intentional will be erased. Not with a bang, but with a quiet, final flicker of fluorescent light. So what can we as consumers do about it? We pay attention. We speak with our wallets. We support stores that support our communities. We ask questions. Where is this food from? How is it grown? Who profits from this sale? We stop settling for bland, lifeless, overpriced shopping experiences. Because in this new era of grocery retail, every purchase is a vote. Every basket filled is a message. And collectively, those messages shape the future. We can support local markets. We can try out smaller regional chains that are taking risks and innovating. We can embrace delivery models that align with our values. But most importantly, we can demand more from the big names still standing. They owe it to us to evolve, to clean up their supply chains, to pay fair wages, to make their stores more efficient and their food more trustworthy. If they do that, maybe they can avoid joining this list. If they do not, the fate of these 15 chains will become their future too. And let us not forget the workers, the cashiers, the baggers, the stockers, the delivery drivers, the deli clerks, the unseen hands that kept these grocery stores running through pandemics, recessions, and everyday chaos. When a chain collapses, it is not just executives who suffer. It is the people who gave years of their lives to keep the shelves full. They deserve better. They deserve stability. They deserve a system that does not discard them when times get hard. Because they are the real backbone of grocery America. In the end, the fall of these grocery chains is a wake-up call for businesses, for shoppers, for cities and towns that rely on these stores to keep daily life moving. Change is coming, whether we are ready or not. And the ones who survive will not be the biggest. They will be the smartest, the most adaptable, the most connected to their customers, the most honest about who they are and what they offer. Grocery shopping is not just about food. It is about trust. It is about time. It is about value. And in a country where millions are struggling with rising costs, shrinking wages, and food insecurity, we cannot afford to keep pouring our dollars into chains that no longer serve us. The list of 15 chains falling apart in 2025 is not just a report. It is a warning. A flashing red light at the end of an aisle. A reminder that if we want better, we have to demand better. This is not the end of grocery shopping. Far from it. But it is the end of grocery chains that thought they were untouchable. The marketplace is evolving, and only the bold, the smart, and the genuinely useful will remain. So the next time you walk into a store, take a moment. Look around, listen to the hum of the lights, smell the produce, feel the atmosphere, and ask yourself one simple question. Does this place deserve to survive? If the answer is yes, support it. Tell others. Go back again. If the answer is no, walk away. Because just like these 15 chains learned too late, the modern shopper is no longer afraid to choose something better. And in 2025, that choice is everything. If you've made it this far, congratulations. Now you're officially more informed than most customers. Like and subscribe to help us keep the spotlight on the food industry's best-kept secrets. And remember, the truth is not always on the menu.